So we're going to set the tone early.
Great.
You know, we definitely let you all know that there'll be some really direct questions about things that we have concerns with.
Good.
Okay? And then we also want to hear about some of the things that you think about education if you become the mayor.
Yeah.
All right, so the first one we have to deal with this. So under the current leadership of our city, the UFT has been battling with the mayor's office and the Office of Management and Business because they keep telling everyone the city's about to go into the seventh circle of hell because of budget problems, and we keep showing everyone where there are billions of dollars in reserves. You have supported them publicly when they've made these statements. Why?
Well, first of all, good morning,
Good morning.
UFT. It is great to be with you. I'm New York City Controller Brad Lander. I'm the son of a public elementary school teacher and guidance counselor. I went to public school K-12, both my kids, pre-K to 12, in New York City's public schools. There are no institutions more important to me in my whole life. And I am deeply honored to be here to ask for support for to be mayor from the people who do the very most to prepare its future. And I feel really honored, and I'm going to talk to you. I'm the only candidate in the race with a plan for the public schools, and it centers teachers, retains, recruits, supports them.
Okay.
On
The
job
question,
and OMB.
Yes.
So first, I guess, I have been loud when they tried to cut our schools in that first year when they put cuts on 77% of school budgets. It was my office who found it, who got out in the streets and forced them, working closely with you, to overturn it. And we made clear that they were lying, misrepresenting how much was necessary to spend on asylum seekers to the tune of billions of dollars a year, and that
they still have $3 billion sitting in a fund right now.
Indeed.
Which
so
is,
yes, I mean,
a little weird.
It
is,
and I
and
called
you're
it
the
out
controller.
when I went to Albany. Well, you and I testified in front of the state legislature, and they said, I was saying to Albany, give us more money, and the legislators are saying, well, controller, why should we give you more money when the mayor hasn't spent the money that we already gave? It's sitting in the city's bank accounts. When Elon Musk came to try to steal $80 million from New York City, should have been the mayor that found it. I found it, got us into court to get it back. So you won't have any of those and I even put up online a dashboard for the first time ever of city workforce vacancies, so you could see, all right, budgeted headcount of teachers is here. They've only hired here. So I will be transparent, a fighter for our schools. I will make sure, look, this is the #1 priority for our future. I have tried to live that as controller, loud and clear, and I definitely will as mayor.
You want to jump in?
So recently, you participated in our classroom experience. What was the most surprising thing that you learned from your recent time in the classroom?
Well, I loved being in the classroom and seeing how hard folks work. That's no surprise to me because, again, that's where my mom was. I've been in a lot of classrooms. What I liked the best about that visit was the teacher center because that school,
Thank you,
they
Teacher
have in PS 96 a great teacher center, which a dynamite instructional coach who has been working, and it was real organic. I happened to be there a bunch of times when teachers came in and said, hey, I'm working on this next credential. Thank you for helping me sign up. How do I get ready? When a couple of teachers came in for their prep, and in that school, they've arranged their schedule so their prep times enable them to be in that center and to work with each other to think about new curriculum. And that happened to be the day before spring break, so they also had, they had prepared a great party, and I did eat a donut, spring fling, and I did eat a donut with no hands in order to compete with the kindergartners.
Well, that qualifies you.
With that.
I mean, there's no doubt about that.
But what I came out of that saying is, when I'm mayor, we're going to have a teacher center in every New York City public school because it is a great model.
So we've had now a lot of years of mayoral control. Mayoral control is up again in the legislature next year. Our official position is that we need checks and balances on mayoral control. We have every mayor just gives us more information as to why the current system does not work. And then every mayor just says, give me a chance, and every mayor makes the same mistakes. It always becomes about, for some reason, politically, the schools get used. And the focus, what we believe, should be on reforming the Department of Ed, completely reorganizing it, because it's not serving our purposes. what is your position on mayoral control, and what would it be next year in Albany if you were to become mayor?
Yeah, I mean, what the mayor should be doing is working with a chancellor to support the teachers in our schools. You know, we say New York's finest and New York's bravest and New York's strongest because we know it's not the fire trucks and the police precincts that fight the fires and keep our neighborhood safe. It's the cops and the firefighters and the sanitation workers. Yet we talk as though it's the schools or the school system that educates the kids. So to me, it's New York's brightest. It is the people that do the work in those schools. And my chancellor and I will be looking to see everything we can do to support them. So I do think the mayor should appoint the chancellor, but that should go through advice and consent of the city council so everyone can see, get asked questions. I mean, for me, that's gonna be someone who was in the classroom, like actually taught, then was a principal and has supervisory or superintendent experience.
So we're good.
But
so
then,
far, it's
yeah.
chancellor.
Mayor
is
appoints the
advice
chancellor.
and consent.
Advice
appointed.
and consent of the council. That's new, doesn't exist yet.
Okay.
And then we have to revisit. I mean, look, the panel for educational policy should not just be like a puppet group that's appointed by the mayor and just rubber stamps policy. It should be a more diverse set of appointees. They don't get to choose the chancellor, but they do facilitate real conversation of
So the question on the
parents
PEP
and
would be
students.
this: would you continue to make sure that the mayor had the majority of votes automatically?
I'm open to a different structure there. You know, I want to choose the chancellor, set clear, broad education policy. And the one place I'll say that it seems to me it's most important to get more parent and educator and in high school even student voices is actually in the SLTs to enable them to be a real vehicle of engagement. So I'm open to revision. And look, these CEC elections we just did were a sham, ridiculous. Yes. Less than 2% of people voted. No one even knows what the rules are. It's clear some people are breaking those rules. So keep the mayor appointing the chancellor so that we've got clear accountability and leadership, advice and consent, and I am open to changes at the PEP, CEC, and SLT level because it doesn't help us when everyone feels like all those vehicles aren't really involving teachers, parents.
I will tell you from my own personal experience, the major mistakes that each mayor has made, they would not have been able to do it if they did not have control of the PEP. And it would have stopped each one from making those mistakes.
They would have been better off because genuine
They wouldn't have liked it at that moment, but it would have stopped them from doing something that actually, in the end, harmed our children.
Look, I brought participatory budgeting to New York City, and that made it so that when I was council member, I didn't just say the capital dollars are going there. I got people in the community, including in the schools, involved. And lo and behold, they had better ideas than I did for where some of that money should go. And so many of my best things in the Gowanus rezoning, in integrating the middle schools in District 15, in participatory budgeting, came from genuine collaboration and participation.
Okay, so you know we're living in a difficult political season with our current president, and he's using the power of the pen. And I'm interested to know, if you become the mayor of New York City, how would you fight to protect us, our public school communities, our profession as educators, our right to be labor unionists and have workers' rights protections? How would you fight against federal cuts and threats against us?
So I will be a mayor who stands up to Donald Trump on behalf of our families and our schools and our values and our immigrant neighbors and our budget. I see your international president, Randy Weingarten, here. Props to you guys doing that nationally. We are doing it locally. You guys are doing it locally, and I'll be your ally. I mentioned this before. When Elon Musk came and stole $80 million out of New York City's budget early on in this administration, I was the one, my office found it. We forced the law department into court. We're going to get that $80 million back because it should be in our school system and not in Elon Musk's bank account. We will not be allowing ICE in our schools, in our public hospitals, in our shelters. No way. We're going to actually have more attendance teachers to go out and make sure those kids get back in our schools and know they're safe. We will be working together. And look, this is a national fight because they're trying to privatize education all across the country, and we've got to show them the opposite here. A mayor with the backs of public schools, of immigrant families, and somebody who's willing to stand up and fight, go into court when necessary. We are lucky to have New York State Attorney General Tish James, and we will be working with her to go into court when necessary to stand up and fight for our public schools.
Okay.
And I actually think they're probably the best thing to fight for if you want to show New Yorkers how we're fighting Donald Trump and standing up for New York values. This is a line I want to fight on together with teachers, with workers. Oh, you asked about workers' rights as well. In addition to being the only candidate in the race with a plan for public education focused on recruiting, retaining, and supporting teachers, I also have a plan to create a mayor's office of workers' rights, because when the National Labor Relations Board is destroyed by Trump, we need to have it at the city level that we support all of our workers, their rights to organize, their rights to collectively bargain in the schools and everywhere else.
Okay, so we are in a crisis right now in New York City schools. We opened up this school year with 3,100 paraprofessional vacancies.
Yeah.
We sounded the alarm. We were authorized at that point, the Department of Ed made it a priority that we could hire paras, and we could still only hire 1,500. Patent bargaining is not a law. It's not a regulation. But the city's adherence to it has unjustly affected our low-wage workforce, and they have really, it needs to be changed.
Yeah.
But right now, we are in a crisis. We are looking at a September school opening with projections of minimum of over 4,000 paraprofessional vacancies.
Yeah.
That means 4,000 children without a para,
Yeah.
and you know what happens. It's just rolls down the hill, and it's crisis, crisis, stress.
In the
all
whole
way.
classroom, because the kids that need
Correct.
paras are kids
So,
that we've got to support.
we have put forth a controversial bill. We had to make sure it had to be legal. We had to make sure it did not. Our lawyers, we were clear that it could not touch any terms and conditions of an existing collective bargaining agreement, because that would violate the Taylor law, and it's actually a provision in the Taylor law that is important to us. But we are the only ones who are out here sounding this alarm that we need to immediately do something, which we call the respect check legislation, that paraprofessionals right now would start to get through a program, and not through collective bargaining. They would get an additional $10,000. We think we need this immediately, because we have to be able to hire paraprofessionals. And our folks who did the hiring halls, it was a union who was doing the hiring halls for paraprofessionals, we would continually get the same type of response, like, I'm going to go work in Starbucks.
Yeah.
So will you support this bill?
Yes.
We're good.
And I'll say, I sat and met with teachers and paras a couple of weeks ago in my campaign office and learned about the Respect campaign, told them I would support it. I mean, I love that work paras do, especially with some of the kids with special needs in our schools, making it work for all our teachers. We've got some amazing collaborative team teaching in the districts that I represented. So yes, I will support the Respect bill, want to pay those paras more so we can get them hired. I also want them to have a program where if they want to then go on and go to school to get their credentials and move in the direction of becoming teachers, they can do that. I've got plans that would pay the CUNY tuition of anyone that spends 5 years in New York City's public schools, so we can pay down any debt you have. And for paras and for teachers, a great thing called Homes for City Workers, which would invest pension funds to double the price of a home you could afford to buy in the 5 boroughs, because recruiting, retaining, and supporting teachers, paras, and school staff is absolutely the single most important thing we've got to do for the future of New York City schools.
So I'm going to jump, because we hit the zero, but we have a little bit of flexibility, and there's 2 things we really want to drill down. We don't have to drill down a little bit, but one is clearly the continued, our continued fight to fix what the Tier 6. Absolutely, it has to get done.
I heard that the architect of Tier 6 will be in this chair a little later, so
that is correct.
Yes.
That person will answer these questions. But it has now become, when I don't want to go back to the history of it, because it was. But at this moment, will you as mayor? There's 2 things. Will you as mayor support the MLC of New York City and support the legislation to move the age for retirement back to 55? Question 1. Question 2, the MLC had been working with the previous administration, coordinating and working together to deal with insurance companies, hospitals, very, very bad predatory healthcare groups. We work together to maintain our premium-free healthcare. That is no longer happening. It's adversarial once again. Will you pledge to go back to the city and the workers working together until we can get a national healthcare plan put together? We know New York City should be the place that says we can still maintain high-quality, premium-free healthcare. Those two questions, Tier 6 and the healthcare.
Yes to both. I'll start by saying, yeah, all right. I'll start by saying yes to both. Look, I'm Tier 4. I'm a New York City, municipal employee, and I'm in Tier 4, and I know what difference that makes for my whole future. And as we're recruiting teachers, asking them to come in and do the hard work of teaching these kids every day, which I saw in that classroom and which I love with all my heart, how can we do it if we're not going to say to them, you could have a secure future in this very expensive city? So yes, do away with Tier 6, put it back to 55. Let's try to go back and figure out how we can get more folks into tiers like 4. And of course, we have to do that better and find healthcare savings by working together. I like this new mayoral office of healthcare accountability.
Yes.
But it has to be a partnership. Bring that data to the table with us and with the other unions, MLC, but also the private sector unions, because together we're the customers at these hospitals, some of which are bilking the city and the unions, and we're going to work together to save that money so we can put it in people's retirement and their health care.
We'd like to thank you very much. Vanecia has had a ball working with you can talk, you can do your thing.
So, of course, I've worked with you in Brooklyn as the Brooklyn Political Action Coordinator when you were a city council member, and I witnessed you move through your classroom experience as our prerequisite. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. I asked my mom what she would say. She was, I say, a lifelong public school teacher and guidance counselor. And if you don't mind, she pointed me to this.
School counselor.
School counselor, excuse me. When she was the school counselor, they used other words.
I know.
She was a lifelong public school teacher and elementary school counselor in a public school. So I said, what should I say to folks? And she lives in St. Louis. She pointed me to this sign she's had up on our wall her whole life, which I just remember from when I was a kid, which is no printed page or spoken plea can teach young hearts what they can be, not all the books on all the shelves, but what the teachers are themselves. You guys are responsible for the future of this city. I can win this race with your support, and I will have your back as mayor every single day.
Well,
thank you all very much, UFT.
And thank you
Thanks, Vanecia. Thank you,
you
Michael.
for spending that day in the school.
Yeah, I
You did
loved
very
it.
well.
It was great.
Thank you.
So next up, everyone, we have Senator Jessica Ramos coming to the stage.
Hey, Michael.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me. Hi, Vanecia.
How are you?
Good to see you. How is everybody? Good morning. Buenos dias. All right.
So we're going to start with something that has been concerning our members, not seeing a lot of funds raised or a ground organization or ads. How will you remain a viable candidate in this current race?
Well, thanks for leading with the hardball.
We told them we're doing that.
That's okay. We're on the ballot. And we are out there talking to New Yorkers in every corner of this city. I think it's undeniable that there is one candidate that, because of his name recognition, is overpowering the race. Nevertheless, every single one of our voices is important. I was not born with a famous last name, and I don't have rich parents. So it makes me very different than some of the leading candidates in the race. I'm a proud graduate. I'm also different from them in that I'm a proud graduate of New York City Public Schools. I attended PS 70, IS 10, and the Academy of American Studies in Astoria, Queens. And I'm a proud District 30 parent. Both of my boys attend Hunters Point Community Middle School in Long Island City. And so my experience over the past 40 years with the New York City public school system has been a big part of my life and something that I care about deeply. So whether I win this race or not, and everything can happen over the next few weeks, especially in New York City, especially with the candidates that are leading in the polls right now, my job is to make sure that I am advocating for born and bred New Yorkers who want to have a voice in government, for parents who want to offer them the best possible education, and to make sure that as a legislator, I am an ally to you as a union, because I do chair the Labor Committee in the state Senate, but I also feel very passionately about making sure that the #1 school choice for parents is our New York City public school system.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. So first, thank you for agreeing to go to a school and work in a school for a day. What is something that you learned while doing that which was completely unexpected?
Well, it really took me back to my own elementary school experience. I went to school in a trailer with 38 students in a classroom. That was my 5th grade class at PS 70 in Astoria, a very different Astoria than the one that's gentrified now. And I think my conversations with the teachers were around chronic absenteeism in a way that I have not heard about in my own backyard, right? Right now I represent a lot of District 30 and the northern portion of District 24. And even though we right now are living at a time when so many of my constituents are fearful of ICE because we have a mayor that sold us out to protect his own butt, the reality is that poverty is violence, and that the lack of opportunity has prevented a lot of parents from really helping their kids show up to school every day. And so there's a bigger conversation to be had in this city about how we break those cycles of poverty, because the child is never going to show up to school every day on time if their parents are not people who show up every day on time. We are in a deep mental health crisis in this city. I have been campaigning on the premise that I would declare a mental health emergency on day 1, precisely because it would allow me to access more income streams to be able to rebuild the mental health institutions that we've lost over the past decade, and actually weave mental health services into our classrooms and into every aspect of our lives. Yes, from socio-emotional learning. I'm a former member of the de Blasio administration. I rounded out the team that delivered on universal pre-K, making sure that socio-emotional learning was part of learning through play for our youngest learners was really important. But I have to say, as a big fan of community schools, I want to make sure that we are addressing and helping children beyond the classroom. Yeah. We have to serve children beyond the classroom. We have to serve the whole family. Schools are learning centers, and there's a lot to say about District 75 and District 79.
Yes, there is.
And making sure we have greater GED access, but this is about bringing everybody up, or else we're never going to get our public education right in New York.
All right. So you certainly have some fans, I hear it. And as we bring all of our students up to an even playing field, we too would like to bring our educators and those that teach them and those that guide them to an even playing field. So I am a Tier 4 member.
Me too.
Right? So
well, I'm not a teacher, but I'm a Tier 4.
Right, you're a Tier 4. So we got it going on. However, it's our duty to go back now and advocate on behalf of those who are stuck in Tier 6 and the drama of Tier 6. So recently we had some actions throughout the city in each borough during Teachers Appreciation Week and Nurses Appreciation Week, where we rallied and we advocated regarding changing the age from 63 to 55. And so we're hoping that as mayor, if you are elected, you would be an advocate for this legislation and for our Tier 6 folks. Are you a supporter of changing Tier 6 from 63 to 55?
Vanecia, I've been in the state Senate for 7 years advocating against Tier 6. I know the campaign is to fix Tier 6, and I really want to fix it. I wish we could nix it. That would be incredible. It's been a great disservice to being able to recruit and retain teachers and other civil servants who are really exercising their vocation to give back to their communities. And we're never going to be able to get all of the teachers that we need, all of the public servants that we need, unless we make an attractive package as an incentive to recruit the best. So you can you can count on my continued advocacy. There's no reason why after 7 years in the state Senate, I would change my support for union members and for all teachers and all civil servants.
Thank you.
We don't like the current form of mayoral control at all. We now have enough evidence to show it doesn't work. Our position is there has to be some checks and balances on the control of the mayor. We might even start changing that position to go even further, because every mayor has made major mistakes, starting with using the school system for political purposes and then made major policy mistakes that we know would not have been possible if people were able to actually vote the way they knew they should. What is your position on mayoral control if you become mayor?
So I have been vocally critical of mayoral control throughout my tenure in the state Senate. I think as long as we don't have a mayor who's been an educator, you're never going to have someone who fully understands the experience that you have, that principals have, that paras have, in order to understand the changes in curricula and in work environment that are necessary. I do believe that as mayor, I would want to appoint the chancellor. I don't think that the PEP should be a rubber stamp for City Hall's shenanigans.
I love that word.
I will say, the rubber stamp or the shenanigans?
Shenanigans.
Shenanigans. And I really, wish that teachers, parents, and students had a much more binding say. But what I will say is, it's great to oppose. You gotta oppose and propose. I think that as teachers, the UFT should really lead on what that new model should look like, and that you should be able to elect a mayor who's going to be your partner in being to implement something that really works for you, so that you're delivering the very best for all of the children in your classrooms.
Okay, thank you.
Now, not only have we been advocating and fighting for our Tier 6 members, but we have some awesome paraprofessionals.
Yes.
And they support our students in the classroom and beyond. However, they are those who are being left behind and falling through the cracks and the crevices when it comes to their salary and their pay equity, right? So we have a legislation that has been put forth that they would be able to gain an additional $10,000 annually under our paraprofessional respect check. So that's where we're starting, right?
Yeah.
And we want to know, how would you advocate on behalf of our paraprofessionals to receive that and then some?
So, growing up, a few of my friends' moms were paras, and you sent me to guest teach at PS 224 in East New York, where I got to observe an ICT classroom with a para, I think maybe two, who did an outstanding job being able to support those students who need a little extra help. And I want to make sure that everybody in our school system is making a living wage. So you have my support for that and then some, because they're a critical part of the classroom in our school system, and many of our teachers wouldn't be able to deliver in the way that they can without their help.
Okay.
Thank you.
So when we have a constant frustration, not with individual chancellors, but for the Department of Ed bureaucracy. It's a constant frustration for us. This year, they rolled out 2 new curriculums, and the rollout was really bad from the Department of Ed level. It was only able to be somewhat successful because of the work about teacher centers and teachers who volunteered to come up with teacher guides and all the rest of the things that they do. The last 2 mayors have said they're going to completely reorganize the Department of Education so that it is serving as a support system for the school, not making the school's lives harder. Now, neither one of them have done it.
Well, that's
You
not
have a
surprising.
plan, because for us, for the teachers, for everyone who works in the school, the paraprofessionals, school counselors, all we continue to get is more paperwork, layering more and more, never taking away, coming out with telling teachers in New York City that you have to teach basically with fidelity, which means stay on a script, which is impossible in the city of New York.
It means you're not teaching to the child.
You are not teaching to the child.
Yes.
What would you try to do?
Leave
if
you alone. I mean,
That's what the schools want right now. Like, we don't want help. Just leave us alone.
well, no, I think you need the support.
But it's
but
billions of
DOE
dollars.
is a very top-heavy. I don't know. When you've been to Tweed and you've seen it, it's very top-heavy, and that of course takes away resources from the rest of the system. So streamlining and making sure that everybody who is at Tweed serves a purpose and really is providing for the structure that is needed for a sound education is important. My understanding is that the changes in curricula need a little more time for us to see, but if you were to disagree with that, then I think that's precisely why we need more teacher voices, whether it's on the SLT or in a different form, so that we are helping you make sure that you are teaching to the child. I mean, I know this is, as a non-educator, but yet as a mom, I know that every child learns in very different ways, and you almost wish that every child could have an IEP. That would be too much. But the point is that we could do a better job of clustering and making sure that we are addressing all of the many different ways that children learn. And I don't know that when City Hall and Tweed are so far removed from the classroom, whether it's about how long ago they were teaching or not, or visited a classroom, and I'm a big fan of the current chancellor, I'll say.
Yes, I am
you know,
also.
well, because she comes from us, right? She comes from the city.
When she publicly
So-
says, I got to fix a whole bunch of things that are broken.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
very refreshing to hear that from a chancellor.
Absolutely, and it takes everybody to be able to do that. So I think what you need is a mayor who listens, and not a mayor who tells you what to do.
Okay.
So currently we have Donald Trump as
I
president,
heard.
and his quote was he intended to make America great again. However, we see that making America great has put a target on our educational system. And so as the mayor, if you are elected, how would you advocate for us, our profession, our public school communities? How would you advocate for labor? How would you advocate and stand up against Donald Trump's federal cuts and threats?
You know, we have to be smart. I mean, he's threatening to cut Title I funding. He's threatening to cut SNAP. He's threatening to cut Section 9. He's threatening to cut all sorts of supports for our most vulnerable families. And you know that we are living in the biggest homelessness crisis of our time, right? I don't have to tell you how many children in New York City are homeless right now, in shelters, doubled up, tripled up. I have to say, I'm not waiting until I'm mayor to be able to address this. I have introduced legislation called the Recourse Act, which would compel the state comptroller to tabulate every cent that New York State sends to the federal government. And remember, we're a donor city and we're a donor state. That means that we send more in taxpayer dollars than we get back for all of these programs and supports that we need. Well, what I would like to do is that if and when Donald Trump and his administration unlawfully removes funding from any of those programs and then some, that we withhold our federal taxes from Washington, D.C. Because we can't cease services to our most vulnerable communities.
Yeah.
And that, of course, includes education. I mean, if the November election showed anything, was we need more adults to be better readers. What are we going to do about that? How do we get people to read more?
Yeah.
To distinguish between fact and fiction in the era of technology, of social media. It's a challenge.
Yes, it is. Well, Senator Ramos, thank you so much for being part
Thanks
of our
for having
process.
me.
And thank you. You got rave reviews from the teachers and students.
Oh, I loved them. They were a great bunch.
So thank you very much.
All right. Bye, everybody. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
Good to see you. Okay.
Well done. Our next candidate for mayor, we'd now like to bring up former governor of the state of New York, Andrew Cuomo. How are you?
How are you?
Good. Thank you. You know Vanecia?
How are you, Vanecia? Good to see you.
Okay. So, the first two candidates, we discussed this ahead of time. So thank you for being here, and thank you for participating by going to a school and working with the teachers for a day. I'm just giving you a heads up. First two candidates, we're asking the zingers right up front.
Good.
All right.
I wouldn't
so
surprise.
let's talk about Tier
anything
6 and
else.
charter schools. So, he understands this. So, we are at a point where more than half of public sector workers are now in Tier 6. And it is now a real problem for us. We ourselves are experiencing heavy-duty recruitment and more. We've never seen, there would always be some people who would leave. They'd leave, after their first 5 years, the majority would stay. But now people are leaving in much larger numbers in year 7, year 8, year 9, year 10. And it is a big problem for us. And the pension funds are phenomenal. Thank you for all our trustees. Our pension funds are all phenomenal. We have to, if you are mayor, would you support and work with the MLC to change the age from 63 to 55 for Tier 6?
Good. First, thank you very much for having me. And I'd be remiss to say thank you all for what you did during COVID. You kept childcare opening. You fed students. We couldn't have done anything without your heroism. So thank you from the bottom of my heart, because you made what we did possible. Public education is under attack in this country.
Yeah.
It's led by President Trump. It's only going to get worse. But there are other factors also. We have to attract the best teachers to our New York City schools, and we have to be able to keep them. Tier 6 was passed 12 years ago or so, even more. 13 years. That's ancient history. The state was in a fiscal bind. They said the pension funds were going to go bankrupt. We're in a much different place now. We need to be competitive. I believe in the old saying, you get what you pay for. Pay teachers a real salary, give them real health benefits, roll back Tier 6. You can afford to roll back Tier 6 now. The state just gave away $2 billion in tax rebates by sending checks to people who didn't need it. So the state has the funding. The pension fund threat is over. Roll back Tier 6 so you can compete and get the best teachers and keep them.
So we're going back to 55. You will help us get back to 55.
Yes, you're going to have to. Otherwise, you're not going to get the best teachers.
And on the charter school issue.
Charter schools are a fraction. That's not what this is about. This is about saving our city. To save our city, public safety, affordable housing, and the best education in the United States of America. So people don't leave New York City to move to Nassau, to move to Westchester, or move to Florida, because they think they want to get their child a better education. Invest in education. That is the public school system. Better facilities, better equipment, better compensation for teachers, better compensation for the paras. Have the best, most competitive education system possible, period.
Okay, because the first thing we saw out of our current Secretary of Education was she dropped a couple of $1 billion into charter schools already. So this is going to be we know it's going to be vouchers. The majority, as we know, they want to voucherize the entire country. That is their goal. But they're going to use also charter school incentives by taking money out of Title I.
Michael,
So, and they're going to incentivize that to states. So you'll be the mayor. If you become mayor, we would have to deal with that in Albany.
Yeah. I know they're going to come to destroy public education. Mm-hmm. And don't underestimate Trump, you know. And people say a lot, how will you handle Trump is a question you're asking. It's not what people think of Trump, what the next mayor thinks of Trump. It's what Trump thinks of the next mayor, okay? I have done battle with this guy, Royale, time and time again. And by the way, we have beaten Donald Trump during COVID time and time again. And he knows that. So I don't think he's going to be all that eager to come in and go another few rounds with us. We have to stake out our position very early, oppose Title I, oppose the attack on public education, and let him know if he comes here, it's going to be a fight. And if you notice, the president, and we went through this during COVID, he likes fights that he can win. He likes people he thinks he can push around. With all due respect, he knows me well. He's not going to come here to push me around because it ain't happening.
So during the second week of April, you were one of the people to accept our prerequisite to teach for a day. So during that experience, what's one of your major takeaways from walking in our shoes for a few moments?
I heard a lot of things that people said, promise me this is just between us. But I guess if I don't
we'll just ask you for one
source,
thing. And
what I heard is what I've heard before. Let teachers teach, not teach to the test. They know how to teach a student. Keep the bureaucracy out of their hair and the supervisors out of their hair. Department of Education is a bureaucracy. Everybody says they're going to tame the bureaucracy. Nobody does. I think you know me from my experience. I have no problem. I have no problem making the government work better. I have no problem going in and reorganizing a bureaucracy, and we need to do that in a fundamental way. DOE and the entire system is working against the teacher. It's making it harder for the teacher when we should be doing the exact opposite. Mm-hmm.
We have a real crisis right now. We have multiple crises, the federal government, this, but fundamental crisis is our inability to fill our para vacancies. We opened up this school year with 3,100 vacancies. We're projecting right now to open up next school year with over 4,000 vacancies. That's 4,000 children without their para. That's 4,000 families who are really struggling, and that's 4,000 children who may or may not be getting to school, who then become stressful on the school itself to serve them. This is absolutely a part of an adherence to this policy of pattern bargaining in the state and the city of New York. Low-wage workers over periods of time are unjustly treated. They have less dollars to spend than people higher than them. we went out of our way to design a bill specifically knowing that it could not change or alter anything in a collective bargaining agreement that would violate the Taylor law. We don't want, that's a provision in the Taylor law that's important to us. And people have said to us, well, you should do it this way. And I said, look, it's an immediate crisis we have to solve right now. I can't have people telling us, I'm not going to be a para, I'm going to go work in Starbucks. Will you support the legislation that we have in City Council to get what we call the respect check? Because it would only be a program, because it can't be part of collective bargaining for the paraprofessionals of our city.
Yeah, and we've worked together long enough. I am not here to protect the government and the rules and the bureaucracy, and this is the way we've always done it. I'm here to get the job done, whatever it takes. And you look at what we've accomplished, from passing the highest minimum wage in the United States of America, to free college tuition, to marriage equality, to building LaGuardia and JFK and Kosciuszko Bridge. Whatever we've done, I do what I have to do to get the job done. We have to pay the paras a competitive salary. We need them. We have to pay them. I don't care about the rules. If you have to make an exception to the normal rule, you make an exception to the normal rule. Yes, I will support it.
Okay.
So you're here to get the job done, to do whatever it takes to get it done, correct?
Yes.
So regarding mayoral control, we understand as educators that there have been some decisions made by current mayor, past mayors, who have had the ability to have mayoral control that have hurt us as a public school system and as educators. So as mayor, if you are elected to get the job done correctly, would you keep mayoral control? Would you ditch it? Would you try to fix it? How would you work that?
The concept of mayor, I support mayoral control. Mm-hmm. It didn't start here in New York, started in Chicago with Mayor Daley. I support mayoral control. But look, I'm a mayor, I know what I don't know. I'm not a teacher. Mm-hmm. You're the teacher. I'm here to support you and help you. And this is a partnership where the mayor should be doing whatever he needs to do to support the teacher in the classroom. That's what it's about. And if it's about reforming Department of Education or getting raises, you tell me what you need to do your job the best you can, and that's what I will do.
So I got to dig into this one a little bit. So the last two people who became mayor of New York City both opposed mayoral control in its current form until they became mayor. Mm-hmm. They're interesting, and each one has made some really bad policy decisions, which are based off of the fact that once you become mayor, that there is a lot of politics around everything. And those politics then start to interfere with decision makings about the schools. That's what we have evidence of every mayor who's ever had mayoral control. The current UFT official position is mayoral control, but not complete control, specifically on policy issues, because that's where it's gotten us, that's where it has hurt our children. So that PEP panel, they keep adding stuff on. Every time it goes to Albany and it's up, they're gonna add some more crazy stuff. It's stupid. The whole thing is stupid. It's just, we should have a very simple, this is what it boils down to, a simple board made up of educators and policy people, but the mayor should not have absolute control of that board. That's really what we're pushing at.
Yeah, well, look, let's be honest for a brief second. I have been an executive. I was governor of the state for 11 years. I know there's politics involved. There's politics involved in everything. But I can tell you this, I'd much rather have the city education department dealing with its own issues than having Albany play their politics with city education. Because that's what will happen. The Albany politicians will tell New York City what they think they should do through their political pressures. I'd rather we control it. I agree with you. I am not a teacher. My mother was a teacher, God bless her, and a public school teacher, and she did mentoring the remainder of her life. She's 93 years old. She's still doing mentoring. But I would work cooperatively with the board, because the most important thing to know is to know what you don't know. And I'm very good at knowing what I don't know. So put together a board with policy experts, with people who are actually doing the teaching, and let's work in partnership. But again, I am totally open to input from the actual experts, and you are the experts.
I know you alluded to Donald Trump a little earlier, and as he seeks to privatize public school education, as he seeks to destroy the Department of Education, representing New York City, what would you do to make sure that those federal cuts and threats don't destroy us as a people of knowledge, or destroy our students in the public school system, or even destroy us as a union? What would you do?
Yeah. Look, everybody says he's a bully and I'm going to stand up to the bully. Again, it doesn't matter what you think about him. It's what he thinks about the person he's dealing with. He knows me, and he knows that I can be a difficult guy to deal with. And he knows, and that is a good thing when it comes to Donald Trump, by the way. You want to be difficult. You can say, I'm going to sue him, I'm going to stamp my foot. The way to beat Donald Trump is to organize the educators around this country, the mayors around this country, the teachers around this country, and let him know if he goes there, he's going to be in for the fight of his life. And we're going to beat him in the Congress because of it. I've been on the federal level. I've worked on the federal level for 8 years with Bill Clinton. I organized all around the country. That's how we're going to beat him. We're not just going to beat him in New York by saying we're going to sue him and we're going to be tough. We're going to out-organize him, and that's how we're going to beat him.
All right, so these are quick question now. New York City workers are basically the largest set of folks who have high-quality, premium-free health care. The last mayor, the previous mayor, actually really worked with us. We went after some really predatory practices, both in the insurance companies, at the hospital level, at different healthcare facilities, who we know are being bought up more and more by private equity and all the rest of this. And because we negotiate with hospitals for nurses we represent, we know that they tell us they're broke when we're at the table, and we look at executives getting $23 million in compensation. We believe it's really important for us, but also it says a lot that we had a partner in New York City in the mayor's office where we were fighting with these folks, where things that people just thought they could automatically get, the city gives a lot of benefits to the healthcare institutions. And we went out of our way, and we found a way to save over $4 billion. We don't have that relationship anymore with this administration. It's adversarial on these issues. And that only works for the healthcare people, because they now know that if we're fighting, they're going to get away with murder again. Would you pledge to work with the MLC to continue this fight until we can finally get some national relief, because we know that's in the end what has to happen?
Yeah. Look, I like to keep it simple. To save this city, we need the best public education system in the country. The best public education system is based on the best teachers who we can attract. To attract the best teachers, compensation, teacher centers, support. Let them teach to the student, not teach to the test, and the benefit package and the health care. And of course, we have tremendous leverage with the healthcare companies. Use the leverage you have to get the best healthcare coverage, 100%.
Good. Well, thank you very much. We do also appreciate the fact that you did absolutely go to a school, you were able to get there, and we do appreciate that because we know it's hard when you guys are running for election to make that time work.
No.
Thank you.
You guys have a much tougher job than I do. Thank you and God bless you.
Thank you.
Nice to see you. Good to see you.
Read out.
How are you?
How's it going?
Zohran.
We didn't even call for you yet, sir.
I was told to come up.
Oh.
You give us time to stand up.
I apologize.
We got to stretch out.
Yeah. Well, welcome.
How are
Thank
you?
you very much. Doing well. Doing well. I heard the former governor talking about Tier 6, so I had to get on stage.
Yes. Yes. I believe you are a Tier 6 member.
I am. A Tier 6 member. It was exciting to see the man who created it in person.
Yes.
Okay.
Happy to be here.
So,
All right, everyone.
do we have to introduce?
Oh, now, if you don't know who this is Assembly Member Zohran Mamdani.
So we have started each session with a tough question, right? So your campaign has resonated with people looking for New York City to become more affordable and livable for ordinary people, like me. Your platform is economic populism. You said you would lower the price of groceries and freeze rent. We love it. But it could also be read that you are promising everything to everyone. How will you make this vision real?
I appreciate this question. I have a question for everyone just to make sure we're all on the same page. Can you raise your hand if you think New York City is too expensive? Almost everyone here. And you're right, factually, this is the most expensive city in the United States of America. It's the third most expensive city in the world. We're tied with Zurich. Now, the promises I've made, we are in a city of 8.5 million people. About 2.5 million live in rent-stabilized housing. We might have some tenants here who live in rent-stabilized housing. The mayor sets the rent increase for those tenants every year through something called the Rent Guidelines Board. Now, politicians try and pretend they have nothing to do with their own power. But they appoint every single one of those 9 members who make the decision. This mayor appointed all 9. They're considering raising the rent by close to 8% this year. I know there are teachers for whom they will get a raise one year and their rent will be higher than that, so they actually lose money. We can freeze the rent. It's a promise I can keep because the last mayor did it 3 times. We need to bring that relief back because when you look at the studies, landlords of these units, they have seen a 12% increase in their revenues. The median household income of those tenants, however, $60,000 a year. If you raise the rent on a senior on fixed income, it doesn't matter if it's 1% or 9%, you're telling that senior they have to leave this city. And to your question about a network of municipal-owned grocery stores, you know, we've seen it's been successful in Kansas. The governor of Illinois just announced that he was going to bring this forth, Governor Pritzker. And this is a program that would cost $60 million. That's in a budget of $115 billion. And that's in the context of a city already set to spend $140 million, more than double that, giving subsidies to corporate supermarkets like John Katzmatidis' Gristedes, where they don't guarantee cheaper prices, they don't guarantee that they have to accept SNAP or WIC, they don't even guarantee collective bargaining. Ours is a program that would not only meet the needs of New Yorkers, but would also increase union jobs in this city.
So I'm going to tie this one together because I need to clear up some stuff. I know that shockingly I'm about to criticize a story that was written in the Daily News. You absolutely agreed that you were going to go into a school for a day and work with a teacher. You were not allowed to. So this goes into mayoral control. So to set the record straight for you all, what had happened is on Monday morning, the UFT was officially informed by the Department of Ed that City Hall had told them that they no longer wanted any of the mayoral candidates to teach in a school. There was nothing illegal about it. It was all done correctly. Everything was followed. Believe me, there were lawyers all over it. And we made sure it was a prerequisite because we think it's important for someone who might lead the largest school system in the world that you understand, have some understanding of what's going on in each and every day. That only happened because we have mayoral control. Normally, in most school systems, the chancellor of the school system or the superintendent would have just told the mayor, tough, we're doing it. Mayoral control is up this year and next year in New York State. What is your position on, should we continue the experiment of mayoral control? Should we reform it, or should we just get rid of it?
I think we have to change mayoral control. And I've said that ever since I became an assembly member in 2021 in Albany, and I'll say that as a mayoral candidate, and I'll say that as the next mayor of this city. Because, not just because Eric Adams looked at the polls and was threatened by our campaign's rise and decided to put an end to this, but also because ultimately, we cannot have PEPs where the mayor has the full control through the majority appointees. We have to have a system where it's not just a decision being made from up on high, but one that actually has educators and parents and students as part of that. And that is something I'm committed to do, and I would love to work together with you and with the union to chart a new course in this city that is less about understanding the mayor as a monarch and more about understanding the mayor as a leader who partners with the very people who keep this system running.
Thank you.
Now, I do want to say, to be fair to you, and there's one other candidate who was prevented from doing these visits, that you had already committed earlier on to participate. And due to the delay in the state budget, that is why you would have been going this past week. So it's not that they had not committed. It's not that they weren't ready to go. It's just that we kept giving you a new date because of the delay in Albany. Now, you did mention a monarch, right? And so we do have a president who thinks he is a monarch, wants to be king of the land. So if you were elected as mayor, just as I've asked others on this stage this morning, what would you do to ensure that the target that's on our back is no longer there, because you would be an advocate for us fighting federal cuts and threats? We fought as AFT, NYSED, and UFT, but how will you work with us to make sure that what he wants to do to the Department of Ed, the public school system, the profession of educators, and to labor unions will not be a reality?
You know, there are no kings in this country. It's one thing that makes so many of us proud to be American. And we have to remind this president of that. And I think that there's no better answer to a real estate developer from East Queens to have an assembly member from West Queens step up as the next mayor of this city. Because too long what we've seen is everyone will come on the stage and tell you they're ready to fight. But in politics, one of the questions that we should always ask is, who is funding your campaign? And I can tell you, I'm funded by 21,000 people who've given me an average donation of about $80. I can't even receive more money because we've hit the maximum of $8 million faster than any campaign in history. And I want to just be direct here because you all deserve to know the truth of the matter, which is that I'm in second place, the governor, the former governor, is in first place. He has a super PAC that has been funded by Trump donors, $250,000 from Bill Ackman, hundreds of thousands of dollars from the very people who put millions of dollars behind Donald Trump. I don't have to pick up the phone from those donors when I'm going to war with Donald Trump. I have to pick up the phone from all of you. And that's what I'm going to do. Because what we have seen too often is that Republicans, when they want to have a fight, we show up with a bar graph. We show up with a bar graph to a gunfight. And what we need to finally do is fight for our people and be willing to defend our values. And I mean that when Donald Trump wants to send ICE into our streets and into our schools, we need a mayor who will stand up and say, that is against the law of this city. You need to show me a judicial warrant signed by a judge. When I hear from teachers that overall attendance records have dipped by 5% because of a fear from families that they don't know if their children will come home at the end of the day, and I hear from individual teachers that there are schools where it's down by 20%, they deserve a mayor who will get up in front of the city and say, we are going to protect every single child in this city. And finally, you have said this before, Donald Trump is going to use the federal government and the cuts as leverage over us. Give me these New Yorkers, be they undocumented or trans New Yorkers, and I will allow you to have this funding. If we want to be able to fight for every New Yorker, we have to also have the fiscal independence to be able to withstand some of those cuts. That's why I have said we should raise taxes on Governor Cuomo's donors. We should raise taxes on the New Yorkers who make $1 million a year or more by 2%, by a rounding error, $20,000. We should have the top corporate tax rate match that of New Jersey. This is a plan that would raise $10 billion because ultimately, we can't just afford to protect what we have. Because what we have, these are crumbs that are not even feeding New Yorkers' families. I can't tell paras to go back to work without passing Intro 1261 that's been introduced by Keith Powers to give that annual recurring $10,000 bonus. I can't sit here and say I agree with reducing class sizes without filling every single one of the 111 unfilled positions in SCA. Because I know that if we don't fill those positions, if we don't increase the amount of classrooms that we're building, we're going to be stuck in this same place where we can say, we tried. But that's not enough. We have to deliver.
Well, you clearly answered the paraprofessional question. So we don't have to go through that one. And I think the next one should be, I'm assuming it's going to be easy for you, but it is going to require, it doesn't require it, but it makes it much easier in Albany to fix Tier 6. And since you are a Tier 6 member.
Yes.
Yes. So
I feel it every day.
Right, so I can go a little bit further because you really are part of, we fixed two things, there's a third thing, and then there's a lot of small things, okay? The big fight is always going to be about reducing that age by 8 years. It's gonna be a massive fight. New York City mayor and all the unions going to Albany together make that a much more accessible fight to win. And then going into the future, we also know that we need to also start dealing with all of the small things that are really hurting people, 3%, 4%, 6% out of their salary. We need to get that money back in their pockets. How do you feel about being partners with us on this fight?
I feel great. I feel great, and I just want to say, you know, as I was brought here, I heard the end of the conversation where the former governor described Tier 6 as ancient history. Let me tell you, it's not ancient. And what's ancient, what should be ancient history is the style of leadership we've had in this city and in this state. I don't want to hear any longer that Tier 6 was created because of a different fiscal reality in New York State. We always have the choice. Do you want to fight for working people, or do you want to fight for the wealthy who are benefiting from that inequality? He made a decision. He made a decision to fight for the wealthy, to fight for his rich donors, and working people have suffered. And what frustrates me is you will always hear people say, how could we retain more teachers? How could we hire more teachers? It's very simple. There used to be an agreement that if you go into public service, you know you won't make a private sector salary, but you will at least have the protections of that pension. And if you take away that pension, what is left but sacrifice? And we cannot ask all of you to sacrifice yourselves every year and then ask ourselves why there aren't more ready to do it. So you will have a partner in me. You will have a partner whenever it comes to fighting for working people, because my campaign is putting money back in the pockets of those very New Yorkers that Tier 6 took more than $100,000 out of.
Thank you.
And I don't just say that because I'm a Tier 6 member.
So we believe that quality, premium-free health care for city employees is not a privilege, it's a right. And we want to know, because you sound like you're a strong advocate for the rights of the average person, what are you going to do to stand with us and collaborate with us and partner with us if you are elected mayor to ensure that all city employees have quality, free, premium health care?
You know, I will be proud to be a partner with you and to recognize the leverage that the city has
Yeah.
due to the sheer size of this workforce. Too often we're coming to a negotiating table almost apologizing, when in fact they are lucky to have us. And that means we can win so much more to ensure that money is staying in your pockets, because what we've seen is these healthcare premiums, they continue to skyrocket. And we look at the world, we pay so much more for healthcare and we receive so much less. That's not a natural dynamic. That's something we can fix. And so I will use every tool in my toolbox as the mayor, but also as your partner, to ensure that we continue to have that as a right and we continue to actually increase the benefits of those very plans.
Okay, next one. This is going to be the last one. So last two mayors ran on the platform that they did not support mayoral control. They were going to undo the Department of Ed, the bureaucracy. They were going to make it work for the schools and for the children and the teachers and the parents. Neither one of them did any of that. Do you have a plan, or are you going to leave it the way it is?
I have a plan, and I think ultimately the question you're also asking is, why should we trust you? Because many of you have been disappointed by politicians at every level.
I think that's a national issue.
That's a national issue.
Yes.
And what I would say is, I say the same thing in every room that I'm in. If I'm sitting with the representatives of corporate America in New York City, I say I want to raise the taxes of the top corporations. If I'm sitting in a room with teachers, I say that I support not only paraprofessionals, but I also support taking on Tier 6, even when the former governor is just right here, because everyone deserves to hear these things. And you have my commitment that we are going to chart a new course when it comes to mayoral control, because this one doesn't work. This one, it's simply just the accumulation of power in one seat. And my vision of New York City is one where it's not just a mayor making every single decision, it's the mayor understanding himself or herself as the leader of a team. And this would be that team. I would love to work with the UFT. I would love to work with you, Michael, and chart how do we actually ensure that teachers have an adequate voice in the education that we are providing across this city.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. We do appreciate you coming here today.
Thank you.
And we appreciate your willingness to do the things we've asked you.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you.
And as the next mayor, you have my word, I will go into that classroom because I'll be able to actually do so.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a real pleasure.
I believe former control of New York City is our next mayoral candidate. Let's bring up Scott Stringer.
Hey, brother.
How are you?
How are you? Good to see you. Good to see you. Good to see you.
Thank you so much. We do appreciate the fact you came here today, and you were able to participate and go into a school for a day, so we appreciate that. She says it much nicer than I do, but we're going to start you with a zinger. 4 years ago, the UFT put its full force and endorsement behind you. Lots of our COPE dollars, which are private donations from all of our members. And we really will working real hard, and your campaign completely imploded. What's going to be different this time?
Well, good morning, Michael.
Well, this is what I get when we talk to everyone, so you should all have to deal with this.
Well, you don't come here and expect this to go easy. No. Look, friends, I'll tell you this. Elections are about a moment in time. And I think now, 4 years later from that campaign, people are buying what we're selling. People know that experience and competence and an education vision is the future of this city. If we had won, if people had listened to the UFT, we would not have the most corrupt administration in memory. And I think we now need to create a campaign that we laid the foundation for 4 years ago. Listen, everybody doesn't win every race, but I'll tell you what we did together. When Eva Moskowitz was coming after teachers back in 2005, and you and Randy Weingarten had to make a decision as who was the best fighter for teachers and for parents. You picked me, and we beat Eva Moskowitz. And you remember, Michael, when we took on another disgraced governor, Eliot Spitzer, people thought our campaign was dead in the water. You didn't, UFT didn't, and we won that race. So campaign's about a moment in time, but I think I am the strongest candidate to go against pro-Tier 6 Andrew Cuomo and let the battle begin.
Okay.
So, a little background. You were our first candidate who went into our schools. So there was a hiccup behind the scenes. So the night before, we were on the phone with your campaign and DOE and City Hall, and it was a back and forth. And you didn't know until almost 11 o'clock at night whether or not you would be able to go to the visit the next day. But you showed up the next day, everything worked out, level heads prevailed, and you went to the school. So tell us, what's your takeaway from that experience?
You are at a disadvantage as a mayor if you do not truly understand what is happening in the schools and in the classrooms. And I appreciated the ability to go to Sunset Park and stay in a classroom, learn what the teacher was doing, participate in talking to the children. But I have to tell you something. That has been my life's work. You know, my mom was a teacher in Washington Heights. I'm a public school kid through and through. I'm the mayoral candidate that has skin in the game. I got 2 kids in middle school. These are not my grandchildren, they are my children. And just saying. And I know what teachers have to deal with in the school system. And I have to tell you something about teachers that I really have come to appreciate over time. How a middle school teacher deals with over 100 children and can speak fluently about our kids at any given moment, either through an app, through a phone call. It is really almost unlike any single profession. It almost is amazing. You know, we parents make them, but you raise them. And we have to recognize that if our kids are going to be successful, you must be successful with resources and career development. And I am hell-bent as mayor to work with this union to never back down, and we will be in the classrooms a lot together.
Tier 6. We got a boo. So you were involved in politics when Tier 6 came about. It's now at the point, and people were like, why are, I've been hearing from politicians like, why is everybody upset about Tier 6 now? It's like, because there was no one in it when you passed it, dummies. You know, it's like, why would you don't understand, more than half the workforce is now in it. So we got to get this thing fixed. But your experience as a controller, if you become mayor, you know the difference when it's the mayor and all of the unions going to Albany together and saying, we want 55, we got to get 55, and then we got to start dealing with some of the contribution things also, because that's money out of people's pockets. We have a national crisis on public sector workers, we have a statewide crisis, we have a citywide crisis. This is something we need to do. Will you support and work with the MLC to go to Albany and say, enough is enough, we need Tier 6 fixed now?
Look, we have 40% of teachers leaving the system after 5 years, especially a lot of our younger teachers, in part because when you do the numbers, it's not like being in Tier 4. And right now in this union, 51% of the teachers, younger teachers, are in Tier 6. And that is not a retirement. That is simply keeping your head above water. So if we're going to realize the dream of more teachers, more resources, it's not a luxury to go to Albany and dismantle Tier 6. It has to be at the central core of our education plan. And you have my total commitment, as you did when we were fighting this over the years, to dismantle the Cuomo Tier 6 agenda. Keep in mind, one guy did this to us, and for him to come here today and say this was ancient history is one of the dumbest things he said through the whole campaign, and I'm not buying it.
So I recently saw an ad on TV that you put out. Now, I'm not going to use the name you used, but you referred to the current president in a particular way because of some of the things he's doing. So today, we are asking candidates what you plan to do to be an advocate on our behalf, whether it's on behalf of labor rights, workers' rights, whether it's on behalf of our public school system, our Department of Education, or whether it's on behalf of our profession, because we understand there have been some book bans, we understand there have been some programs cut because of diversity, equity, and inclusiveness. We understand all of that. There's a threat against our livelihood, but there's a larger threat against knowledge and empowering our children with knowledge and wisdom. And so as the current president seeks to threaten us with federal cuts, what would you do as the next mayor of New York City to ensure that New York City stands strong educationally?
Look, the next mayor has to use experience and strategy and competence to deal with Trump 2. I dealt with him in Trump 1. And this is what distinguishes me from the other candidates. I have the skills not to just understand the financing and the ways that the Trump administration is going to try to dismantle the social safety net. This is very real. This is serious. This is not a time for big pronouncements. It's a time to build capacity to fight him. My strategy short term is to set aside $1 billion in a very, very rainy day fund so we can replenish the money that is literally being stolen from us until we get to the midterm congressional elections. We win that, we start to dismantle the Trump agenda. But look, they're smarter than they were 4 years ago. They want to use New York City as a national symbol of what they can destroy. And I am never going to back down. And let me tell you something, I'm going to keep that schmuck out of our business.
Okay. We have many crises. The UFT is always in wars or battles. That's what we do. We understand because we're the largest union, especially the largest teachers union in the planet, we're always somebody's target. We know all of that, but we have an immediate crisis right now, and it's called the paraprofessionals. We've done something very creatively. It was not easy. We created legislation that does not violate the Taylor law. That's what we believe legally. It does not, has anything to do with collective bargaining agreement. But and people keep criticizing us, saying, oh, you could do it this way, you could do it. Like, we don't have time to do all of that. And it is this adherence to patent bargaining that has caused this injustice. But this crisis has to be dealt with. We do not want to open up in September with 4,000 para vacancies. Our paraprofessionals need relief now, and that relief comes through legislation that is what we call the respect check. Will you support us and the other 47 city council people who are supporting it, but the bill is, it's going to be a fight. Will you support us in this fight? Because we cannot have over 4,000 children in crisis in September because the adults wanted to play political games.
Well, let me say this about you, Michael, in particular, and the leadership of this union. When you decide to uplift the members, you think out of the box. You and I collaborated for many, many years in the last mayoral administration when people were coming after teachers. People didn't understand that special relationship to teachers and kids. But what we are doing now, and I support you 100%, is you are actually making sure that our paras, who help our most vulnerable school children, the people every day who don't get the recognition financially that they need to take care of their families, that's gone on too long. So we're not going to wait for collective bargaining. We're going to pass that bill, and then we're going to work at a contract that protects them.
Go UFT. I heard y'all over there. As the former comptroller, with the knowledge that you have, with the experience that you had in that particular role, how will you continue to fight for quality premium health care for all city employees.
We're going to keep, and look, I'm very proud working with the amazing UFT trustees. And let me tell you, you wanna know about a group of people that don't mess around? Let me tell you what these trustees did, right? In addition to protecting the retirement security of our teachers, right, TRS, you know what we also did? We did big things that made a difference in kids' lives. This was the union that said, let's divest from fossil fuel, and we did. This is the union that said, let's divest from guns, and we did. This is the union that said, let's divest from private prisons, and we did together. And then the union said, let's make sure, even during COVID, we get a 9% return in our pension fund. We accomplished that together. And I'm gonna use, that's right, and I'm gonna use my experience, experience that is unmatched in this race, to meet the financial moment facing our city. You know, the AFT, Randy Weingarten, I know of the work they are doing with red states and with treasurers and controllers seeking to destroy our pension fund. But I learned as far back as being Manhattan Borough President that pension fund is the backbone of the economics of this city and this country. And I have a sworn fiduciary position for 8 years, and before that as Borough President, to never ever waver in that fight and that struggle. And I know on day one how to do this. Look, it's easy to make a lot of promises, but I will tell you politically, the shelf life of governors and mayors in this country are shrinking. If you don't have a plan, and Eric Adams didn't have a plan on day one to move an agenda, and you blink for 6 months, the agenda is over. I don't have to blink, because I can walk into City Hall on that day and get the stuff we need done and get it done in the first 2 years. If we don't do that, we are gonna have a problem.
So we're gonna finish up with this one. Last two mayors didn't support mayoral control until they became mayor. They also said they were going to reorganize, dismantle the Department of Education, which basically does nothing as for the, look, there's some people, good people over there, but overall, what they do is just harass us and make our lives more difficult. So mayoral control, and what would be your vision of what we should be doing with the Department of Ed in terms of its support for teachers and school communities?
So my view of mayoral control is to support it. And I think what makes me different than those previous mayors is I come from you, and I come from the perspective of being a parent. And I think it's very important that we have one person who has the authority and the control to make the tough decisions in collaboration with CECs and with the PEP. This is a difference between a dictatorship and being a collaborator. And I think it would be nice finally to have a mayor who understands the education system and can build an infrastructure at the DOE that can meet the needs of teachers and parents. Look, as a parent, my biggest fear with my kids is not talking to the teachers. I can get them on the phone, one email. Teachers know all of our kids. My biggest fear as a parent when I have to call the DOE and all hell breaks loose. Like, it's a cesspool of a bureaucracy that is not meeting the needs of the teachers and the people there. And Michael, you know this, when we were dealing with COVID and we couldn't even get iPads into the classrooms and into the students, and you said to me, let's go over to City Hall together and get that capital funding for iPads. We did that. I know this bureaucracy and how to break it. So here's my deal. Put a strong mayor in place who understands the education system. Put a mayor in place who's a collaborator, who can work with teachers, who can work with principals, who can work to break down the bureaucracy of DOE. Let's put a schools chancellor in position to be successful finally. And then let's make sure that never again will we have a runaway DOE that is bureaucracy centered. I want to put every last dollar I can, and we can do this as mayor, and my experience as controller, every last dollar has to go to school supplies, has to go to the classroom. Do you know in this day and age we're having the same discussion that teachers still buy pens, toilet paper, and the like? What other profession in the world has to go out and do this? Could you imagine if these corporate titans had to go buy their own toilet paper? I mean, what are we talking about here? So that's what I want to fix in the system.
Well, We thank you so much for participating, and we really thank you for taking the time. I know it's not easy when you're running a campaign, but you did taking that time to go to a school and actually be there in the shoes of what we deal with every day.
Thank you, Mike.
So
Thank you both.
so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, so up next we have Senator Zellnor Myrie joining us.
Good man. Nice to see you.
How are we doing? Good, you?
Okay, so as Michael says, I said a little nicer. Cup of sugar, cup of sass.
Let's do it.
But so for you, in the beginning of your career as senator, there were UFT members who sought your political support to solve issues and somehow felt dismissed. So the union had endorsed you, but we didn't feel that there was interest in our concerns or viewpoints. So we had a rocky start. Educators, nurses, and public employees are sensitive to the issue of respect. We feel our professionals are not given respect. Has this changed?
So firstly, thank you for having me. Good morning, everyone. It is an honor to be here and to seek the support of the UFT. I would not be sitting here today if not for the UFT, and let me tell you why. My dad is a retired public school teacher. I think my dad is in the room right now. Are you here? Are you here? Yes, he's in the back waving his hand with his phone.
Back here.
And a proud UFT member. I would not have had health care growing up if not for the UFT. I am a D17 kid. Went to public schools. Let's go D17. Yes, yes. So this isn't just about politics for me. This is very personal. And I plan as the next mayor to be supporting our teachers because it is literally our future. Some of you may have seen my first commercial on TV, and it is starring Mrs. Randolph, who was my middle school teacher, who provided the foundation that I've needed to get here. So I plan to repair any miscommunications that may have happened in the beginning, but I have been a proud supporter of our teachers, of our public school system. I plan to be the mayor that fights for our teachers and our students.
Thank you.
Thank you. Tier 6. We don't like it. It's bad. We have to fix it. If you become mayor, will you partner with us, with all the municipal unions, go to Albany and say, enough is enough, this is a crisis, it should have never happened, and we need to fix this now?
Without question, let me just say, we were all proud to see the Knicks win in 6. It was Knicks in 6. Let's go. That's why I have a little bit of orange and blue in my sneakers today. But we do not like tier 6. And the mayor has a unique opportunity, the media capital of the world, political capital unrivaled throughout the country, to go up to Albany and to say enough is enough. We cannot shortchange the backbone of our city, and I would be proud to work shoulder to shoulder with you and other labor unions to ensure that we get that repealed.
Okay, so earlier we had another candidate on the stage, and I said there were 2 candidates who we had to change their dates to go into our schools. Zellnor was the other candidate who had agreed early on to participate in our Teach in Our Shoes for a day, right? Prerequisite. However, on this past Monday, we received a call, emails, all that great stuff from City Hall stating that as of that day, there would be no more candidates allowed in the schools. Now, remember, because of the budget delay, Zellnor's date changed like 3 times. So we feel that this is a pure example of the overreach of a mayor who has mayoral control. Though you didn't get a chance to experience a day in a classroom, can you tell us the equivalence of the red tape of bureaucracy and the interference, how that impacted you, and if that somehow determines whether or not you, if elected as mayor, would support mayoral control?
Yeah, so I think it is unfortunate that we did not have that opportunity to be in front of the classroom. But as I was explaining at the top of this, I come from personal experience in our public schools, and because my dad was a teacher for over 2 decades, so I have some perspective on what happens in our classrooms, and I also represent a lot of schools right now in my position as a state senator, the very neighborhood that I was born and raised in. So we have to do a couple of things. One, we gotta empower our teachers to do what they do best, and that is to help our kids. You know, I had several teachers that said, I'm gonna do something a little different than what I've been told to do because I know who you are, I know the blocks that you walk, I know how you grew up, I know the food that you eat. Let me help you get to where you need to go, even if it's perhaps unconventional. I support mayoral control, but in partnership with our teachers and supporting them, ensuring that our CECs and our PEPs are not just acronyms or alphabet soup, but that they are a partner at the table to help with serious decision making. It is really important, particularly in this moment where we have attacks coming from the federal level on telling us what we can and cannot do in the classroom, that we work together and we work with the people who are in front of our kids every single day to support them and give them the resources that they need.
You brought up the federal government. They don't like us. We're the biggest teachers union on the planet. We're an impediment as far as they're concerned, and they're coming after us. Now, they're also going to come after our city, because we stand for a lot of things they don't like. So how, in your role, if you become mayor, this is going to be pivotal, right? This is the pivotal challenge probably in the first year of the next, whoever the next mayor is, right? So what is your plan, and how will you combat this attack that we're already on? People keep saying the war is coming. The war is already here.
Yep.
What are your plans?
All right, so let me say this, and I got to sit up for this one, because to me it is anti-New York City for us to get pushed around and to not push back. This president is taking every single step to test us, to see how far he can go and see how many people are going to stand up and have some courage in this moment. So of course, it is an expectation from New Yorkers that as the mayor, I work with the president when it's in the best interest of our city. But what he has demonstrated is that he does not care about New York City. In fact, he hates the things that make us special. Both of my parents are immigrants. They both came from Costa Rica. They both worked in factories when they got here. They were not documented when they had me, but they still felt safe to take me to Kings County Hospital because they knew the city had their back and that the city wasn't going to deport them. Look at what we are in right now. A mayor that was wholly compromised and allowing ICE to run rampant in our hospitals and our schools, not standing up. We can't accept this anymore. This is a historic moment in the city's history. We are writing the next chapter in the city's history, so I plan to stand New York City tall and to say not in my city. I have a frontline agenda. I'm a lawyer as well. Would not have become a lawyer without an amazing public school education, to be clear. But I've read the Constitution. I'm familiar with the amendments. I've sworn an oath to uphold it, and I think we gotta go on the offense. In my law department, I want to hire 50 more lawyers, and I want to utilize the 10th Amendment to say, if this president is going to try to illegally withhold funds from us to force us to carry out his policies, we are going to refuse. We're going to take them to court. We're going to stand tall and stand strong. That is what the expectation is. New Yorkers want a mayor that's going to fight for them. Come on already. Enough of the nice stuff. Oh, well, maybe if we could, and perhaps, and let me have some tea and some bread. Nah, we're not doing that anymore. We got to stand up for our communities. That's what I plan to do.
I heard the Brooklyn in you.
Little bit.
Just a little bit
Yeah.
come out. One of my favorite people is Shirley Chisholm. And she had a quote. She said, if they don't give you a seat at the table, bring your own folding chair.
Right.
We have some awesome paraprofessionals in the house. And I believe they know about bringing their own folding chair to the table because as it stands now, we're currently in a crisis regarding having enough paraprofessionals to partner with our teachers
and teach our students and ensure they get the best education possible, right? And so in April, we had Para Appreciation Day. We had an awesome rally in the city, and we were demanding respect for our paraprofessionals. We have a legislation that has been sponsored by 46 city council members and the public advocate. And we want to know if you would advocate, support, partner with us to ensure that as we start with this stipend of $10,000 to be an additional amount of money for our paras, we know they deserve that and more. But to start off, can we count on you to do that?
Show me where to sign up. This is this Council Bill 1261, and thank you to Councilmember Powers for sponsorship. Thank you for the work that y'all have done in collecting, I think, really an unprecedented amount of co-sponsors for this important amount of legislation. I would be wholly supportive of this. You know, our paras do life-saving work, and they do not receive the gratitude that they deserve. They do not receive the respect that they deserve. I think in particularly, as again, my dad is a special education teacher, for our students with disabilities, for our students with different needs, our paras are the lifeline for our teachers. And so we have to do right by them. I would be proud to support this legislation. Let's get it across the finish line.
Thank you.
Thank you. For the day-to-day working inside of a city school, the biggest frustration is things that come down from on high from the Department of Ed. We've had new curriculum rollouts this year, really fumbled, and I'm trying to use the nice F word, really fumbled by the Department of Ed, 58-page teacher guides that were all cut and pasted from different sources. Teach with fidelity, which means a script, which means you don't recognize that we have a phenomenal diversity in every classroom that's in basically gross incompetence to give teachers that instruction. And the last two people who have become mayor have all said they were going to fix that. They haven't. It's still this massive bureaucracy. And this, I want to be clear, this is not a criticism of our chancellor. We actually like this chancellor. I mean, I like the chancellor because she's been very upfront about, we got a lot of things that are broken and not working, and we got to fix them, and that's what I'm going to focus on. What are your thoughts if you're the next mayor? Because it seems to be that bureaucracy has figured out no matter what, it's going to protect itself.
So let me say this. I would not have gotten into Brooklyn Tech if I didn't have a middle school teacher that said, I'm actually not going to do what they've told me to do from Central. I'm actually going to break with the script, and I'm going to help you with some test preparation. I believe in every single one of you in this classroom. You are not less capable than anyone else. You just need a little bit of help. That changed the course of my life because a teacher broke the script, not because they followed the script. And we need to allow the space for them to do that. There is a balance, I think, that can be struck with the outlines and the bare bones of what's necessary for everyone to get the sound education. But we have to have some flexibility to let teachers do what they do best in front of the classroom. Everybody has a game plan until they get to the arena. You got to deal with what's you right before your eyes. So I want to be a mayor that has that flexibility and gives them that flexibility so that they can put our kids on a real path to success.
I'm going to push on you on this one now.
Push.
Because we've heard that before also. You know, we can go to a myriad of different issues that have really been problematic. I remember 2 years ago, we were pushing about the non-compliance of special education services. So the Special Ed Department of New York City asked all the principals if they were in compliance. What do you think they said? They said yes. And then the Special Ed Department told us, well, we're 100% in compliance. So what I'm really trying to dig down into is, how do you start to unravel this bureaucracy? Because believe me, people have tried.
Well, look, first, you got to help me to get there. And so I'm fighting to earn the support of UFT so that we can have the opportunity to get at this bureaucracy. I think there is an expectation from not just our teachers, our students, our families, but from everyone in this city that government works for them. Government is not supposed to work for the people in government. It's supposed to work for the people that they serve. And I think that that culture, that level of leadership, and hopefully in my appointment of a chancellor and my senior officials, that is going to seep down and say, listen, if we have always done it one way and it's not working, why would we keep doing it that way? We got to change, and that is something that I would be implementing.
Last question.
Okay.
Regarding our stance, knowing that education is a right and not a privilege, we also believe quality, premium-free health care is a right and not a privilege. And if you are elected mayor, how will you fight to ensure that all city employees have that?
Look, I mentioned my parents would take me to Kings County Hospital when I was younger. I represent Kings County Hospital now. I also represent SUNY Downstate. And this is the only state-run city hospital in the entire city of New York. And this governor proposed closing it last year. And we stood with many of you in this audience to say, hell no. We are going to stand up and fight for our health care that serves this community, because you have nothing else if you do not have your health. This is the same approach and the same kind of fight that I want to bring for our city workers. You come to this level of service with the promise that you're going to get a health care benefit. We got to ensure that that health care benefit is sound, that it is healthy, that it's fiscally responsible, but that it also serves as a tool to help you stay here. I mentioned I would not have had health care if my dad was not a teacher in the UFT. I was greatly benefited from that. We have so many families that are in that position. I want to continue to allow for that level of quality of life for all of our city employees.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. We do appreciate you partaking in our experience with you on the mayor's race, and we really do thank you for being, at least saying, I want to do it, but we'll fix those things.
Let's go.
Thank you.
Pura vida, I heard that.